Well, welcome and good day, everyone. We, of course, are back here once again for our Talk It Over, and we are, of course, glad you guys could be here and join with us in this time as we kind of dive into this last message in our series, God Is. But of course, before we do that, we want to catch up a little bit and catch up, of course, with you guys. So, how's it going, Dave?
It's going pretty well. It's been crazy. The weather's been up and down, and so you can be outside, then you're not outside. And I'm looking forward to the weather being warm enough to be out in the garden.
Yes.
And get that going. And I know my wife was thinking about going out yesterday, and then it snowed, and she thought maybe not, maybe it's too soon. But that's good. We've got some family stuff going on where just some medical stuff we're praying about, and so some concerns that way. But other than that, it's been good.
Yeah. All right. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
It's good to hear. Yeah, I guess for me, it's been a bit of a up and down. Yeah, the weather's been up and down, which has been crazy.
It is crazy.
Because, we get those nice glimmering days of nice and warm, and you can, have be in just a sweater, not a jacket, and the next thing you know, we have snow again. So that's been kind of unfortunate.
But it's spring in Canada.
It is.
Right?
It is. It is spring here, and that's just kind of to be expected.
Yep.
Not medical stuff, but little guy's been kind of up and down, just kind of not feeling real great. My wife's been the same. I have as well, but he seems to be just holding on to it a little bit longer than we have, and so he's still kind of recovering. So hopefully he'll get out of that soon and can kind of get back to his regular routine. He's been asking to go back to school. He wants to go see his friends. He wants to do all those fun things that he's been missing out on. So he's kind of excited for that. But
good.
Yeah.
It's nice when they're looking forward to that, though, right?
It is.
Rather than dreading going back to school.
Yeah, because sometimes they get into that routine of, I'm home, I don't have, I can just relax. And so, seeing him excited and wanting to be at school, and then also the disappointment of not being able to, kind of gives you that, he really does want to be there. So, so that's really good. So let us know, guys, in the chat, if you guys are, catching this on YouTube, please let us know how's your week been, how things have been going. Maybe something really good's happened. Yep. Maybe you got something difficult. Maybe you need a little bit of prayer, but please let us know in the chat. We'd, of course, love to hear from you guys. And
drop a comment. Give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up, a like,
a
subscribe. So, of course, you guys can get this each and every week as it pops up. It'll let you know that it's there. Yeah. And, of course, our Facebook. You can check things out on our Facebook. We've got that as well. Lots going on there. All upcoming stuff, new things happening. So check that out as well. So today, we are finishing our series in God Is, and so far been an excellent series, and Pastor Craig's done really well, and we've had some guest speakers come in as well as a part of this message series, which has been really good. And a great way to round it out this week, we had his wife, actually Amy, giving us the message this week, and the title for her message was Hope for a Hopeless Situation. Yeah. Which... Man, the last couple messages are kind of almost like gloomy titles to these messages, which can sometimes is a hard topic. Sometimes we get that feeling of, is there any hope in my situation? Is there anybody there for me? And I think across that
through the pandemic and everything that's been going on, there's a lot of people really struggling, and I guess that's what they're trying to speak into is God has something to say and something for people.
Yes,
who are really wrestling with hard things. Through everything that's been going on.
Yep. Yeah, it's certainly an easy place to get to in that hopelessness. And of course, Amy started it out with a question that we all wonder, and sometimes definitely even feel, do you ever feel alone? And I think we can all answer that as a kind of a yes, that we do get those times in our lives where we are feeling very secluded and alone. And as you alluded to, these past couple of years really being pushed to being alone and separated and apart from everyone. And that can really be mentally and emotionally draining because we just don't have that interaction that we generally need to have. I think this message has been really good for kind of tying this whole last couple of years together about, looking for that hope. I like how Amy kind of put it as we go, God gives us promises, things that he's promised to us. And we've discussed about how he follows through on those promises, and we can trust and know that he's going to come through. And yet we even tend to try to take things into our own hands and make things happen. because we feel maybe it's not happening fast enough, or maybe didn't get the right answer that we wanted when we were praying about something, and we'll just help God out.
We're going to help God out.
and we'll get this ball rolling,
Yeah.
right? So I thought that was kind of interesting how she put that together. And then again, just bringing it all together with, Sarah and Abraham, and they're waiting for their child, and it's taking forever, and then they decide, oh, well, we're going to take on the servant, and she's going to bear children, and try to make things happen that weren't supposed to happen. And a very interesting story that Amy expanded on for us, which I thought was really good, and she did bring it really, really well. So again, if you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, our YouTube channel, it'll be there at LifeNorth.Church. It's there. You can check this one out, plus all the previous messages. Everything's there, so you can get caught up and know exactly what we're talking about today. So she kind of touched on kind of a few main points around this hopelessness, and sometimes our concern about God and who He is can be a part of maybe us feeling that hopelessness.
Well, and she brings a different perspective than Craig does, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And so I like that because it mixes it up a little bit. Different people relate to it. And so she came at it from emotion. She said, these are some of the emotions you may feel depending on whether you're struggling with something or what's going on in your life, and wondering where God is in that. And I kind of like that she took that perspective with it.
Yeah. She brings that in a real good way. And again, it's nice to have these other speakers because they do bring that different perspective, different viewpoint on a lot of these topics. Again, another reason we can get confused. That's another part of she touched on, is about being confused. And we tend to live in a broken world, and we can only see what we can see. And we kind of lose sight of that God is there, and He's watching us, and He's always there with us. And we get kind of confused about that as we can't see things, or things, again, aren't happening on our timeline, not on God's. Of course, our doubt, our frustrations, again, can be a part of that, in kind of where we are in that hopelessness about what does it look like to see God in those hopeless times. Comfort was another one. Does God care about me? And I know we sometimes get there. Does He still care about me? And I know she touched on a very personal story about, do you care about me? Do you still see me?
Especially when we're suffering, right? When things are not going well and we're wondering if there's an end to it, and okay, God, where are you in this?
And bringing out, our God is a God that sees us, and He's the one that's always watching us and sees us. But for us, if we want to know Him, we got to seek out God. We have to seek Him out. He's there with us, but if we don't seek Him, we're not going to have that relationship, that building point that, again, she was talking about. As we walk daily, we build the trust in His character and who He is, that He will be there with us.
And it's interesting, right? Because you may struggle with something hard that's come along, and this time you do not too bad. The next time is a little worse. But if you're not walking with God, it actually gets harder and harder and harder. And then someday you're like, I don't think God is there with me. I don't know where He is. He's disappeared. And it seems like it just happened overnight. The truth is, you weren't walking with God daily, and so you slowly drifted away. And then you weren't sure who God was and what He was doing.
Yeah, those certain moments for sure. And you can have that real slow drift. But certainly in those hard moments, things that are very difficult right in that moment. Now, I know for Amy, again, very walking with God daily, but even still has those moments where, do you see me? Are you here? And I think we all get that. It's just, you see the realness that comes out when she's speaking about that. And you see somebody who is very strong in that daily walk and yet still struggles with, are you there?
But I guess it's not that you're not going to struggle if you're walking with God. It's just that in terms of your answer to it, do you bounce back to that, no, I know God is here, and do you see Him giving you, like she had that moment where she knew God was speaking to her and giving her some comfort. Do you miss that because you're not close to God? And so everybody struggles sometimes, but do you bounce back from it? Do you see God move or not? That's where it shows up.
Exactly. So we're gonna get into Scripture here, and then we'll dive into these questions.
Okay.
They are quite good. So our Scripture today is from Hebrews 4:13. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of Him to whom we must give account. Which is Very true. He's always watching us. He's always there. Everything is exposed to him. And so he knows us and sees us. And so, I like that one. It really, that kind of touches that, we're going to have to give that account. And he's watching us as we move along that journey.
Yeah.
So Amy had talked a little bit about her family and talking about, picking names for their children.
Yeah.
So Dave, do you know what your name actually means?
I do. My mom actually made sure that I knew. So David means beloved. And she would tell me quite often that that's what it meant. And just a way to build me up and to affirm me. And it doesn't always feel that way. But it's kind of nice to know that there was some meaning, some thought behind the name. And it actually is a middle name and a first name sometimes in our family. So it gets swapped around a little bit.
Yep.
Kind of those family things that get carried on.
Yes.
So that is a part of our family line a little bit too. And and from the story of David in the Bible and all that means. So what about for you?
For me, well, I did know what my name meant. I have, of course, forgotten most of what my name means. But kind of what you're saying, the family kind of thing that gets passed down. So, of course, my grandfather, his name was John. My dad's middle name is John. And my name, Ian, in Scottish has a translation over to John. And so it's...
That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. It's a different way to have that incorporated.
Yeah.
So I thought that was neat. And, of course, my son, his middle name is John as well. So it's kind of just been passed along as we kind of go through the family stuff. But I forget the translation. This is about a paragraph explaining what the name means, but...
Jonathan David. That's the connection in the Bible, right? That's good. I like that.
So maybe next week I'll have to look that up. Maybe next week I'll have to come back with the translation for that. Good. If you guys know what maybe your name means, or maybe your parents picked it because there was a meaning for it that related to you, or maybe it was just a family name that's been kind of handed down to each child as it goes along. But please let us know in the comments. We, of course, would love to hear that. See, I'm curious to some of the names.
That would be fun.
I kind of think that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So, as of course this message was excellent, was there a specific part, Dave, that really impacted you?
There's a couple of parts. Obviously, the stories that she told were really emotional and very meaningful, and I thought were really powerful. I always like the reminder, what you mentioned earlier, that everybody struggles sometimes. When you're going through hard moments, everybody has doubts. It's not a bad thing to have doubts. Doesn't mean you don't have enough faith. Doesn't mean you're a bad believer. Like, none of that. Everybody has doubts sometimes. And so just her kind of sharing her struggle, and I mean, you can come out of it and God can build your faith through it. And those can be the moments where God really shows up in a special way.
Yep.
Because you're like, God, I need you. Where are you in all of this? And so I love that. I love those moments where someone's crying out to God and he does that little miracle that couldn't be happenstance, right? It wouldn't have worked to happen by accident, where God says, yeah, I'm here and I'm caring for you. And does that little thing that you need that's so specific. And that really builds my faith. And I love to hear that story. So, that was powerful.
Yeah, it was quite powerful, especially when she was talking about, hitting her playlist.
Yes.
And it's the same songs all the time. And this new song popped up about, God cares about the sparrows and he cares about you. And just in that moment for her, just that little bit was the bit she needed to recognize, that God still cares about you. He cares about everything, all the small things, and cares about us. Man, for me, I actually really liked the part about God always sees us. I thought that was very interesting.
All right.
Because I forget that. I forget that a lot, that God is always watching. God's always, seeing me, seeing what I do, how I'm living, all parts of my life. And I think I tend to forget that he's always watching. I think, there's got to be more people that are in a more difficult situation that need more God, or need a bit more help or more encouragement. And I think so.
God's busy. He's busy.
Yeah. Almost like busy. He's busy. It's okay. I'm good right now. So it's the attention maybe needs to is pulled somewhere else. Right.
Interesting.
And so just seeing that reminder about God sees us and He's with us, and just that constant relationship and everything that's building in that as we continue on our journey.
Yeah.
I thought was really, really good. I really just kind of struck a chord.
Yeah.
And again, those small reminders with that song, like again, those small reminders that we need every now and then that's very pointed to what we're feeling or what's happening right in that moment. Again, that's all that part of that God seeing us.
Because God saw that.
Because God saw that.
Yeah, and that was really her theme through it all, wasn't it? That because God sees us, then he responds to what we're going through. Then he responds to our hopelessness or our hurt.
Yes.
Because if he didn't see us, then there would be no response.
Yeah, exactly. There'd be no change in anything.
Yeah.
And so, that for me just reaffirmed, the character that God has, that he is with us, guiding us, helping us along our journeys.
Yeah.
It's not like, he leaves us, he forgets us. As we talked about in previous messages, he's always with us doing and everything else that we've had going.
Yeah.
So really like that. So I don't know what that is for you guys, but let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
What was that part of that message that really struck a chord for you? Because there can be some really personal, touching ones that really strike, or maybe it's more general. Maybe just the message itself just impacted you in a way of thinking about God differently. So we're going to read Hebrews 4:13 again. It is such an excellent scripture, and then we're going to have a little bit of question there. So, nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of him to whom we must give account. So, with that in mind, do you ever feel alone, Dave? And what truths about God can help you remember that he is always near?
I think we all go through times where we feel alone. And even if people don't admit it, they're struggling with it. And sometimes we try to self-medicate that loneliness by either running after people or running after experiences or running after substances, something to fill that emptiness, that loneliness we feel inside, because we want to be known. And I think that's why God said, I want you to be connected to me in relationship. But because God is spirit, he knows we need more. He created the church.
Yes.
And he said, I want you to be connected with one another as family. And so because we struggle with that, we do feel alone. And so for me, that's two things. The one is I need to be with God. And so when I'm spending time with God, because he speaks to me and it feels very personal, I feel like I'm not alone.
Yep.
Like God showed up.
Yep.
And I have that happen on a regular basis. And if I didn't have that, I think I would feel very disconnected from God and more lonely in my life. But then the other part of that is really being connected with church family. And when you're connected with people who care and who are on the same journey and, you're kind of worshiping and serving together, then there's a bond there that you get. And that helps kind of feel like, no, I'm part of something more, something bigger and connected.
Yep.
So I think for me, it's those two things that would help with the loneliness.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, that's a deep question, feeling alone. Certainly have felt very alone at different points, of course, in my life.
Yeah.
Certainly before, of course, meeting my wife, coming to LifeNorth.Church, very disconnected. And as you were saying, really trying to fill that void, that emptiness with things, which of course is what our society drives on very materialistic, having things. Yeah. And I found myself, that's what I did. I filled myself with things, always the latest, the greatest, the newest of everything. That's what I did. That's what I filled. And for a short time, you feel good, and then you go low, and then you got to find something else. And it's that constant cycle. Yeah. So that certainly, that was really a very lonely point. The other point, that, again, feeling alone, was actually when my son was born. That was a very low point where I felt very alone. More alone, I would say, from God than church family, because at that point we had, come to LifeNorth.Church. I made connections, getting connected with people. Yeah. And again, as you talked about that community, about bringing that community together so you don't feel alone, that there's people there supporting you. I had that, but the alone was alone from God. Yeah. And it was that pullback of, are you here? Yeah. Do you feel me? Do you know I exist? And it really was a tough struggle to really find out where God was in all of that, knowing previously that, no, God is with me, he's doing this with me, he's helping me, but in that moment, it can be really difficult. And it was certainly a struggle. And
that's what happens, right? Though, in those really, really hard moments where we kind of get that feeling like, if God sees me and he's with me, life will be smooth and easy and pain-free.
Yeah.
And then the pain and the suffering hits, and you're so surprised, like, God, where did you go?
Exactly.
Like, what just happened here?
Exactly.
Because if you were with me, I wouldn't be going through this.
Yep.
And then you have to learn, like, no, God is with you in it. He just doesn't prevent all of that from happening.
Exactly. And it was that struggle. It was, crying out like David, and it's crying out to God, like, why?
Yeah.
And having that really kind of shaped more afterwards, and realizing that the difficulty that we went through helped us to be stronger on the other side.
Yeah.
And again, working on that relationship with, of course, me and my wife, as well as working on that relationship with God, and seeing it at a different perspective, from that first perspective of God's with me, nothing bad happens, to no, God's with me through the difficult, but I need to build that perseverance to, push through,
keep going with
to
him.
keep going.
Yeah.
And so, it's.
So did you find that was actually pushed you towards God in the end?
In the end, it did. In the moment, of course, it seemed it was almost like a battle. It was almost like battling God to where are you?
Yeah.
And it's really pushed me towards to God and where He's got me going, and realizing that the struggles, the trials, the things that really test us are what can really make us stronger. And seeing that's really helped, again, in more areas of my life, not just that one, about persevering and coming through and following through with what you're doing, even though things are difficult. Because, again, they were talking about previous messages, right?
But isn't it funny that I think the experience becomes, if I'm not going through something where I'm struggling, then I don't struggle to be near to God.
Yes.
It's easy to drift. It's easier to drift away from God when there is no struggle.
It is. It certainly is.
Because I'm not fighting to stay close to God because I'm going through something hard.
Exactly. And we certainly have experienced some of that as well. As things shifted and the situations became less emergency, less life concerning for my son.
Yeah.
That struggle was like, okay, well, now I'm not battling. So now where does this all fit? And again, that's the other side of that, is God's still with you. God's still there. It's just, you have to seek Him in a different way.
You have to seek Him.
Right? In a different way. It's not that battle seeking. It's now I'm seeking Him to continue, as Amy had described, about walking with Him daily. It's a different kind of a walk. It's
funny though, right? Because it's almost like we think if it's really hard and I have to battle, that makes sense because life is really hard.
Yes.
But when life is really easy, I think seeking God should be really easy. There shouldn't be any battle. It shouldn't really be a seeking, which is energetic. It should be like, no, this comes naturally, right?
Yep.
And it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It certainly doesn't. And that can be part of that misconception. And again, I think that's partly where that whole God doesn't see me because the battle's not happening.
Yeah.
Right? And then you lose that perspective of, no, He still sees me. He's still there.
Yeah.
It's just, you got to seek Him differently.
You got to seek Him. Yep. Good.
So let us know, guys, what might that be for you? Yeah. If you've ever felt alone, or maybe you're feeling a little bit alone right now, please let us know in the chat. We would love to be connecting with you, as well as praying for you. If you have a prayer request and you need that, we can certainly do that for you guys. Yeah. So what are some of the emotions or thoughts that surface when you remember God always sees you?
One is concern. So Amy talked about that, right? She talked about concern, she talked about confusion, she talked about comfort.
Yep.
And I think for me, she nailed all three. There's concern because I know that my thoughts and my behaviors are not always good. Often they're terrible. And God sees that. And so there's a little bit of panic. Like, I don't want God to. Better to live in denial. Like, maybe God doesn't see me right now.
He turned the other way.
He turned the other way, so I'll be okay. Because that's a little bit scary and really, I don't know, embarrassing or whatever that is. You just feel bad. So I think there's some of that emotion for sure that Amy talked about. I think there is confusion, what we talked about. Like when you're going through a really hard moment and you're not seeing the answer, like, God, do you see me at all? And then, comfort. I think, especially as I'm spending time with God day by day, I think that's the other one is I feel comfort that He is close to me.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed that one right on the head there with that. The emotions that of course we can feel. She really did touch on those really well.
She did.
With concern, confusion, and comfort, those certainly are big emotions that, again, we can have to deal with. And remembering that, again, that concern about the thoughts, the things that, we're doing day to day, and then like trying to take an account of this and like, okay, God's seen all this. Oh my.
Yeah.
What right? And
you know what that makes me think of is there was a video we saw years ago that compared Jesus to Santa Claus.
okay.
One of these Christmas ones.
Yep.
And because Santa Claus is supposed to see everything,
Yep.
and he judges the naughty and the nice. And you're
Yes.
either on the naughty list or the nice list.
Yes.
So for a kid, they'd be terrified. Like, did Santa see me when I did that bad thing to my brother or sister, whatever, right? Well, we kind of get that way with God. Did he see me when I did that bad thing?
Mm-hmm.
The difference being that whereas Santa cuts you off if you've been naughty,
Yep.
Jesus actually knows that we all blow it. He came to make it right. He
Yes.
came to cover our sin
Yes.
and take it for us so that we could all be good.
Mm-hmm.
And how different that is. To bring that perspective, like God saw me do that terrible thing, but he can forgive me for that. And Jesus paid for the penalty for that, the price for that.
Yep. Yep.
He looked after it for me. And that's pretty amazing.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It is. That's a pretty good comparison. Yeah, like Santa writes you off, and
Yeah.
God's there to help you through it.
Yeah.
And provide that grace, that mercy. Yeah, the emotions can really change, and yeah, even I would say even some fear I think can be part of that as well. Can be fearing what God's seeing and being afraid of the judgment, I guess that you're going to have to give an account for.
Even knowing you're forgiven, there's still a little bit of that, right?
Yeah, even though you know you're forgiven, there's still that fear of I've got to.
Amy talked about that. She said that's wise. You should be. Like, God is holy and he does judge what's wrong.
Yep.
And he should. So yeah, it should kind of make us a little concerned.
So yeah, I think fear definitely is one of those ones I think that for me surfaces about where, you know, and then again, I think back, okay, so before I knew God, that's a chunk. There's a chunk there, and that may not be great. And then it's like, well, maybe he didn't see that chunk.
No.
but that's part of the story, right?
You
that's
were
part
older, right, when you kind of entered into that relationship with Jesus?
Yes.
And so did you not feel a sense of like relief that all that was paid for?
Yes. Definitely had that sense of relief and knowing that God's, that's been paid for.
Yeah.
But again,
still go back to it.
Being that person, it sometimes comes up every now and then. Just this fear, this surfaces, and trying to just not let that control the direction of what's going on, because I know that's been forgiven and I need to let that go. God's let it go. I need to let it go, and yet still tend to hold on to it a little bit. I think that's a big one. I don't know what it is for you guys, of course. Please let us know. What are those emotions that surface when you think about God's, sees you? He sees you. He knows how you're feeling. He knows what's going on. What might that be? What are those emotions? Maybe it's exactly what Amy talked about that confusion, that concern, that comfort. Yeah. Maybe it's a little bit of fear. Maybe it's a little bit of joy, knowing that God's there with you. Yeah. Maybe you're happy that he sees you and he's with you and he's guiding you. And, you can continue on each and every day walking closer to God and knowing that he's there. Maybe that's part of it. Oh, well, man. Time flies.
Is that it already?
That is.
Wow.
That is. Time flies.
Okay.
We've had a good conversation. I like these.
There's always so much to dig into in these.
There is. Yeah. There's so much to dig into, and there's certainly more you guys, of course, can dig into. Yeah. And that's where a life group really comes into play in really diving into this stuff a lot deeper. So you and two friends, very simple, can start a life group, get things going, get those different views, those perspectives on kind of what we're talking about each and every week. And of course, you can find all this stuff online at Life Church. They've got all the material there for each life group, making it super simple for you to lead through it and talk about it.
Well, you can even email us.
Yes.
info@LifeNorth.Church, and we'll send you the questions.
Yeah.
We could send you the talk it over questions, and it comes with the verses and stuff that go with it. And we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah. Everything you need to know is there, and making it simple to get those life groups started, because we know that they are important. We're, of course, in them, and diving into these questions each week and having a lot of good conversation that comes out of it is very, of course, very important. And we want to thank our tech team behind us here, making this all happen. Because it wouldn't be going really far if we didn't. And so we want to thank you guys a lot for doing that. And again, we want to thank you guys for joining us each week. We certainly appreciate having you guys here, going through this material and really just diving into each of these messages each and every week, because we know whoever finds God
finds life.